All right. Today is June 29th, 2021 at 6 o'clock. We will be starting our Board of Health meeting at this time. On the phone, we have Matt Gagner. In person is Jim, our Board of Health agent, and Pete and me. And first up on the agenda is an acceptance of the prior meeting minutes for June 1st, 2021. I don't know if you guys have read it, but if you have, can I get a motion to accept the meeting minutes from June 1st?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to accept the motion that we accept the minutes of the June, was it the first?
Yes.
June 1st meeting.
I'll second it.
All right. Thank you very much. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
All right. Those are now accepted into the record. The third item on our agenda is regarding Shuck's food truck permit. And Jim, I know you have an update on that. They will not be showing. Can you just fill us in on that?
Mr. Chairman, I did receive an email from the owner, Julia Nadler, and she's not able to attend the meeting tonight, and we'll be in touch when she's available, so she's reserving her right to come before the board.
All right.
So I'd like to table it if it's okay with you.
Yeah, let's table that, and if she wants to show up to a subsequent meeting, we'll put her back on the agenda for that. We have old business. Do you want to go through old business before we talk about the Old Worcester Road, Jim? Is there any?
I think you should, the landfill grass cutting,
Yeah.
this may be the appropriate time to,
Okay.
if you want, that you have the bids there, because it's on the
All right.
agenda.
Yep, then we'll go in order. I don't think this will take that long. Matt, what we have here, I don't know if Jim's filled you in. I know you are not in town. We have, let's see, because I'm just looking at this now too.
The bids remain sealed, Matt.
Yep.
Okay.
This one looks like it was run over by a tire or something. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like four quotes, so I'll just open up the first one.
You have an opener right there, I think.
Yeah, sharp objects. All right, this is from Lawns by Marcus Hilditch, LLC. Dated June 3rd. Mowing of 90 Flint Road landfill. Quote for landfill maintenance, 2-year contract. Annual cutting and handwork of the capped landfill. Year 1 and year 2 are both the same in the amount of $5,585 each. Thank you for your consideration, signed Marcus Hilditch. And he's got taxpayer info and certificate of liability insurance. So $55.85 for each year of the contract if we do a 2-year contract. Next one is from Jackie D'Amato, Lawns. Wait a minute. Why is it? I'm sorry, this must be the cover page for this other one. Okay, sorry. It was separate, it wasn't in the envelope, so I thought it was something. So maybe we just have 3?
I believe it's only 3. When you said 4, I was thinking I must have missed, but I didn't even look at them and touch them.
Excuse me. The next estimate is from BCB Lawn Services out of Charlton. This doesn't say very much. It just says Flint Road landfill price $5,000.
Mr. Chairman, he is currently the one who is mowing it.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Mr. Burlingame.
Mr. Burley.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
His
Very
wife
good.
was away. He told me he apologizes. He's
No,
not
that's all right.
doesn't have any computer savvy, and she was on vacation, so it was very difficult for him.
Yeah, that's fine. It's not signed either, so
But
I didn't
it
put
was
2 and 2
sealed,
together.
and I said it is what it is. So it's $5,000 per year.
all right. And the third one, Johnny Appleseed Tree and Landscape, Duxbury, Massachusetts. landfill mowing quote for 2021. Mowing and trimming landfill per mowing, $3,000. This price is based on mowing landfill and trimming, based on trimming in and around all riprap around any and all pipes, side of road, etc. Any questions, please do not hesitate to call. This is signed by Peter Koch, owner, Johnny Appleseed. So we have 3 quotes, $3,000, $5,000, and $55.85, I believe. $55.85. Discussion from members. Matt, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
All right.
On the Johnny Appleseed Tree and Landscape, did you say they were from, was it Duxbury,
Duxbury, yes.
Massachusetts?
Yes. And their business card says the landfill mowing experts. They also have 2 other things on the card: brush cutting and mowing, and slope mowing. Have you talked with these folks at all, Jim?
No. They did send an email, Mr. Chairman. They're wondering if they had awarded the grant, awarded the contract yet. I said the board has not even opened the bids at this time because we canceled the meeting.
Okay.
But 3,000 sounds
Through
low.
the chair,
Yes, Matt, go ahead.
do we know if they have physically been to the site and seen the site with their own 2 eyes?
I have no idea.
We don't know that, Matt. Yeah,
My hesitation is, I've been involved with mowing of this landfill now since day one. I have a relatively good understanding of what's entailed in it. It's not an easy task. It does have steep slopes. There's a lot of handwork. There's a real lot to it. Last time we went with the lowest bidder, we ended up having some troubles because I don't think they knew exactly what they were getting themselves into, and created some scalping issues and some damage that the board had basically was not able to recover from. Personally, and I'm not so sure, I'm probably wrong, but I'm always looking out for the taxpayers' dollars. But to me, there's a big difference between the $3,000 and the $5,000 budget right there. It's almost double. And where Mr. Burlingame has done it, he's mowed that thing, I'm going to say 6 times, perhaps 5 times or 7 times. But he knows what he's getting himself into. He's always done a good job. And I'm tending to lean towards Mr. Burlingame. I know $2,000 is a lot of money, but I think if we have a problem with it, it's going to end up costing us more than that $2,000. And I believe it's a safer bet going with who we know and what we know, and have some confidence that it's going to go well.
I agree, Matt. I've been around this board enough to know some of the issues that we had, and the folks that you mentioned that were from Minnesota. Is that right?
Yeah.
So they came in and they I don't think they realized how steep some of the slopes were, or some of the work that was entailed, and that caused issues for quite a long time. And is this some of the scalping that we're still taking care of now?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that bill for $6,500 is because of damage from someone who was a low bidder that came in. So it didn't work out. So now we have to pay $6,500 to repair someone because they were a low bidder of, I think it was less than $3,000. Don't remember the exact quote. And we awarded them, but now we're faced with paying $6,500 to repair what they did, and someone who's going to underbid by $3,000. I think they might have just wanted to earth Google and looked at it. Didn't realize these are 2-to-1 slopes. It's going to be done by hand. Mm-hmm. And if there's any more damage and they damage the liner, we're going to get stuck repairing that.
Yeah, I agree. Pete, do you have any thoughts on this?
I agree. I mean, we have experience, that knows the job. We're satisfied with the quality work.
This is a question for probably Matt or Jim. What is the current cost of that? If Mr. Burlingame is doing it under contract this past year, do you remember what the cost was?
5,000.
5,000. Okay, so the cost is the same. Yeah, I would tend to go with Mr. Burlingame also, just because we don't want to end up having to go through issues with the liner, with the scalping, with the erosion, with bringing out Gary Magnuson from CMG to review this, and then I think the DEP had to get involved as well because of some of these issues with the scalping and the liner and the exposure. And
The DEP was here 2 weeks ago. We walked through, but the old landfill only.
okay,
The problem is the DEP wants you to hire someone qualified to make sure that the landfill doesn't get damaged. So I think the safe bet is with someone who's already mowed it 7 times. His bid is not exorbitant. Gary figured the repair would cost about $75,000 to $8,000 for the repair, and he came in at 65. So you know he's an honest man.
all right. Matt, anything else to add to this? I think I know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, so the only thing I'd like to say is in the future, and I know this is a 2-year deal, but if we had a little more information on Johnny Appleseed's tree and landscape business, maybe seen some of the work, or actually met with him on site and let him see with his own 2 eyes what the expectations are, and he still feels that way down the road, I'm not saying that I wouldn't go with him by all means. I'm suspect that that company may not fully understand what's involved, and myself knowing what's involved for the $3,000. I mean, we're talking 4, 5, 6 days worth of work over there. I believe they're going to be working backwards, and I also want to bring up the fact that I do believe it's prevailing wage work, and if it is, prevailing wages, hourly rates are up there. Now, in Mr. Burlingame's case, he's an owner-operator. So the prevailing wages, he's exempt from that higher rate. But if this other company has any type of staff to go and do it, they're also going to be required for that prevailing wage rate. And again, $3,000 does not go far when you're 3, 4, 5, 6 days into a project. So I tend to stay with the sure bet that we know, and I'm supporting the DCD landscaping on this one.
All right. We do also have the scope of work for the quote for the landfill mowing services that went out. And rather than have me read through this, Jim, this also entails getting rid of any woody vegetation in the drainage detention areas.
In the detention area, I watched the last person with a specialized machine or a computer watched his lawnmower roll down the hill. Then he went and bought another lawnmower, so it is any large vegetation, woody vegetation. And Gary Magnuson thinks that he does a great job, and we have to send Gary out there at a high rate to make sure that he walks through. And Gary's satisfied that Mr. Burlingame is qualified to be on the landfill and is not going to cause any damage. So that's a key issue, because Gary's there testing the landfill. The DEP's walked through. We need to ensure that it was being properly maintained, and if we just let someone on there we're not sure of, I think it's taking a risk again.
I agree. The company from Minnesota, although they were very polite and apologetic, they didn't even finish the job, right?
No.
So I don't think we paid them, right?
They actually paid us money back, so we had to have someone mow it. Mr. Burlingame came back and mowed it, and then he got the contract again. They reimbursed us, I think, $1,900.
But not the scalping.
No, because now we're faced with that repair that needs to be done.
Okay.
And that's
Right.
more than the mowing itself, the repair. But if you look at the cost, Gary figured it out that it would cost between $75,000 and $8,000 was his estimate
For the repairs.
For the
This
repair.
was 5 different areas at least, I think, of scalping.
At least of scalping.
Yeah.
It's so the grass is so high now, it's tough. But Bruce knows exactly where they are,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm confident that he could do a good job. He lives locally. He goes by and checks on it all the time.
Mhm.
He's very, 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 very does excellent work, and and Gary feels comfortable with him being there. And Gary's worried that just because someone's low bid, that they're going to run into this again, and the DP's going to really come down on us.
Right, okay. Anything else, Matt or Pete? No, or Jim? No? All right. Do I have a motion for acceptance of one of these bids?
Through the chair,
Yes, Matt, go ahead.
I make a motion that we accept the second highest bidder of BCB Lawn Services to mow the 90 Flint Road landfill on an annual basis in the amount of year one, $5,000, and year two, an additional $5,000.
Perfect. Do I have a second for that?
Second it.
Pete has second. No other discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. We'll award the
Could I have a-
mowing contract to BCB, and we'll put all of these back for you, Jim.
Because I do need to notify them.
Right, yep. I think that's everything for that. Along those lines, we do have an estimate for repair of the open spots. These are the scalped areas. This is from BCB Lawn Services as well. To repair the scalped areas, he calls them open spots, apply mesh, loam, and reseed. And I'm assuming also monitor water, whatever needs to be done until it's signed out by
Yes.
Gary Magnuson of CMG. Is that correct, Jim?
That's correct. Gary actually met Mr. Burlingame up there, went over what needed to be done to make sure there was no tear in the liner, and that he knew the scope of services of work, and that when there was an estimate given, he gave a good valued estimate. I know the board voted not to exceed 35, but he went over the bid with me and said the soil costs more than that, so he couldn't bid that low.
And then, of course, you gotta somehow get it up the slope.
He's renting actually a motorized hand wheelbarrows that have a motor on them that actually take the soil up. He has to hand bring it up because you can't drive on it. So he's taking precautions to make sure that he does it right and doesn't damage it. So
And the mesh is what, coconut? Is it, Matt, is it coconut mesh? Something
Yeah,
like?
it's an erosion control matting. There's different brands and different different materials that they do. Coconut mesh is one that I've been using and I've been familiar with. But erosion control matting, basically, it holds the moisture down and prevents some erosion, and it works relatively well. You can use straw as well, but the straw or the hay tends to blow away, and so the mesh is just a little more of a permanent solution on that.
Okay. So this is the only estimate that we have for this. I'm assuming we can, if we decide to do this, we can just go ahead and go with this. We do need to get this done, and I believe Gary Magnuson said that we can't be doing this in July. We'll have to wait until August, well, September, probably September, October, for all this to and get the grass to grow properly. Is that correct, Jim?
I believe that he said you wouldn't be able to seed it but you could put the soil and coconut mesh
Okay, all right.
and hold it in place to stop the liner from tearing or getting any kind of growth. Anyway, remember, I go by there every day. There are people walking their dogs there, entering the landfill, walking around. I don't know why they'd want to, but the grass is high. But there are people going in there. I'm just afraid someone's going to decide to walk along the open spot. So somehow we got to protect it. So
Any other discussion from Matt or Pete?
Jim, sorry, John, did you say the repair work was $6,500?
That is correct.
So I just want to, for whoever is listening that doesn't realize, when we talk about the number 3,500, we were requested to have that repair done, and we didn't have a formal quote to do that work. So as a board, we knew it was time sensitive, and we authorized to have that work done. However, we didn't want to give an open ticket. So at our last meeting, we just we authorized a not to exceed $3,500, hoping that was enough to get the project done. now that we have a little more information on it, we realize it's gonna cost a little bit more. I have no problem myself, approving the, full amount of $6,500 to move forward with the repair work.
I agree. I also am glad that Gary Magnuson was out there, spoke with Mr. Burlingame. Gary knows the landfill quite well, and he's very adept at what is required to get this repaired so that it's back to the way that it should be, so that we don't have issues going in the future. So I don't have a problem with this either. Pete, anything?
No, I think we need to move on this so that we can get this rectified.
I agree. Do I have a motion to accept the estimate from BCB Lawn Services for repair of the Flint Road landfill for $6,500?
Through the chair,
Yes, Matt?
so moved.
So moved, as stated by the chairman. All in favor?
Need a second,
Aye.
don't you?
Second.
Aye.
Need a second first.
Sorry,
The second.
second. Second, and all in favor, once again?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right, Jim, there's your estimate approved by the board.
We have a crow sitting there waiting.
The crow is waiting at the window, huh? Let's join the meeting.
He's eating lead.
Let's see. Next up on old business, Cemetery Gould Road updates. I'm just going to read this so I don't miss anything. Mark Baldy, letter to Jim Philbrook, that may be old news. Also needed is a PIP group leader, and a letter to the group from Jim was sent, I believe. Jim, you want to expand on this?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we have not received any feedback from anyone to step up, so I'm going to have to reach out. I believe that there was one person named Mr. Beck that was possibly mentioned by Kathleen that was willing to step up, but I have not been able to contact him. So
Brian
I'll reach out
Beck.
and get back to him and see if he's willing to do it. It sort of fell not by the wayside, but no one's through emails and our contact list has stepped up and willing to be the contact lead person, and that's what they're looking for.
Do we have to have one, or does the DEP require it, or is it just
DEP wants someone to.
wants to?
Yeah.
So it's
sort of
not a
required.
must-have, it's a want.
Yeah, so we'll try and comply with that. It's certainly something that we can get done. I'm not sure if I can serve as a lead person. It has to be someone in the neighborhood that's part of the 10 citizen group that signed that petition to me.
Okay.
So
And is there any other update from DEP and the spectral
analysis now.
analysis of the?
Not at this time. Mary Jude is still out of office. So is Mark Baldy is starting to get back in office. The only update we have is that the 29th is that public hearing for NEC. I know you said you couldn't make the last date. I think it's changed to the 29th now.
Okay.
So but that's different subject.
Right. So nothing else on Cemetery or Gould Road? You haven't been in contact with any of the folks or any testing results?
Just the church, because they needed to do some testing, and I had to work with them. They haven't had any parishioners, and the church needed to continue testing. So he did continue on with McClure Engineering to make sure his property was tested, because he's a public water supplier.
Right.
DP wrote him up as a demand that he couldn't drop his company and not have it tested, keep the church open. So a little bit of a situation, but it's been rectified. So McClure is willing to work with the church and keep him in compliance to the DEP to remain open. Otherwise, he couldn't open the church.
Good. All right. Moving on. Household hazardous waste encumbrance account, Deb Marquis. To address money that can be used, and that may be slightly off, but Deb, do you have anything? Come on up if you want. You can be
I'll bring
part
a
of
chair for you.
part of the meeting. So what do you have for us tonight, Deb?
Well, I went to the June 26th Household Hazardous Waste Day event because we've made an effort or push this summer to try to get more vouchers used. For example, in March, there were 60 people signed up for a voucher, but only 24 were used at the event. So we felt, that was a real underrepresentation of who could have been there. So we put flyers around town for the June event. It was on the sign for quite a while in front of the town library. And I also went to the Hazardous Waste Day and spent 4 hours there handing out vouchers to anyone in a car from Charlton who didn't have a voucher. So we ended up with 69 residents who signed up for a voucher, and 55 were used. So
Okay.
that was a much better result than March. So I'm wondering if in March, it may not have been publicized as well, and COVID, who knows if COVID was part of that. But we feel it's a successful program, it's important. Who knows where this waste could end up if
Yeah,
it didn't get
right.
there. So we're happy to, we would like to continue it. We thank you for the encumbrance on it for this year, and is it next year too?
Yeah, we had to.
In the
cover
next
it.
budget.
So this year, we're already in 2022 budget. So
Oh, okay.
July 1st,
Oh,
so.
And there are, 50 vouchers that are generally made available for
it's
each?
100,
It's 100?
100 a year.
100 a year.
Yes.
So if we do 2 hazardous waste days.
4.
4.
But, the December one wasn't held, as far as I know, is because of COVID.
Mhm.
So we'll still be having 2 more this year, September and December, or this calendar year. So it's a good use of the money. So I think it was $2,250 of the $3,000 for 2020 and 2021 that got used then. So that's a good use of the money, and we intend to make every effort again to get people to do this.
And for anybody who's listening, these are available through the Board of Health, when the Board of Health is here, so any resident can come by, just sign their name and address or something and get a voucher. Yes, Jim?
Mr. Chairman, Debbie actually went Saturday, and people who were there, 14 of them, were willing to pay themselves. Deb handed out vouchers herself and spent the day there. So
You're
Yeah,
thank you very
your
much.
new best friend, right?
Well, they saved $30, which
Yes.
is great. And I did everybody that I gave one to, I reminded them that there's more events coming up this calendar year. Please go to the Board of Health and sign up for a voucher, because I'm not sure I'll be there the next one. But I have to say, I kind of enjoyed it, so I would not mind doing it.
Okay.
But we also, Jim has mentioned that there could be some other things to use that money on if there's, leftover. So I know Kathleen Walker, who's on the recycling committee with me, we still would like more signs up in Charlton about littering. All the ones we put up so far, there's about 15 of them I think we've bought over the last few years. They're not punitive in any way. There's no fine mentioned. Yet we are discussing with Jim also if we should try to do some signs that involved a threat of a fine, which that may be all it is. But
It's difficult for Jim to patrol a couple hundred miles of roads.
oh, I know.
Follow people around. Yes, Jim?
I think, Mr. Chairman, Pete even mentioned it last time. Chapter 111 does allow for fine for littering.
Yes. that's
We
correct.
can put that on there, but I always try and find out who dumps stuff on the side of the road or does whatever. On Burlingame Road, the power lines, they dump trash by the bagfuls. It's very difficult to find. And if I issue the fine of a 21D ticket, they usually don't pay. But to draft a regulation and go any further, I think is unnecessary, because we could just use Chapter 111 and regulation. Because that would be difficult to do. But I think having signage that threatens a $250 fine, sure, that would be up to the board, but I think that would be appropriate. But threatening a fine is something that you can do, but in all cases you try not to. I think it's the people that don't litter and care, the ones that want the signs, and there are other people I'm driving behind them, they're just throwing stuff out. I mean, Route 20 has signs, no littering and stuff, but you see 1 million cigarette butts that are sitting there at the stop sign.
Don't forget the nip bottles.
Oh.
Yeah, and they're all, don't even get on it. But I think if there is money left, the board, we do have it in my operating budget. If there's left, if they want to buy signs, I think the board would
Sure.
wouldn't object to that.
They're about $15 to $20 each.
Well, that's not bad. That includes the stake to put it on?
No, the highway's been very nice about providing the stakes.
Okay.
And they'll put it on some other pole or whatever, something they're allowed to put it on if they don't, if there's something there.
That's
But we
pretty
thought, Saundersdale Road, Route 169, Stafford Street, Route 31, I mean, those are good places for signs like
Mhm.
that.
Okay. So when would this leftover money be designated? Is there a specific date when we say, okay, we've got $300 left over?
Mr. Chairman, we encumbered the leftovers, like she said, we spent, Deb, I don't know the exact number.
2,250,
So-
just for this, from the March event and the June event.
So we rolled over, I don't know, $800 or so into the next one, so we have 3,800 this time. So if we don't use it, because we should try and use it for Household Hazardous Waste Day, because when Casella closes, we're gonna have to do something different for collecting household hazardous waste, and $3,000 is not gonna do it.
Oh, yeah.
So we have to discuss that, that's another topic of discussion, because our school's currently under that 5-year agreement with, that Casella provides for the town hall, and for the schools, the trash pickup is gonna go away, and so will the household hazardous waste day. So I think we should encourage people to come in, get vouchers, bring your household hazardous waste. It's $30 free voucher, it's not free because it's taxpayer money, but it's still, we want people not to throw stuff out on the side of the road or keep them in their barns or whatever, so.
Where we've had an increase in, the reverse calling for the town meeting and some more additional Facebook, should we just give it a cycle to see if we can publicize it a little bit more and see if we can
I
get a
agree.
greater turnout for the hazardous waste?
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we talked about it today with Deb, that we may need to get the message out there a little more, and I think that one way to do it is through Charlton Happenings. There's a Facebook page. I don't get on Facebook. The girls in the office don't, so you're a member of the board. I think you could post it. I don't know if John is on Facebook, but
Barely.
but if you do have a social
Right.
network where you meet, I'm on LinkedIn. I have a social network there, but that's different. That's business.
Right.
But certainly that's something that we can do better messaging. I would say get the word out that we do have them in here.
Could we even target the schools and have the kids be the driver of this to, encourage their parents to
Could.
take advantage of it?
You mean like a flyer to take home?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at least get them talking about it, or engage the Boy Scouts, or have some ideas.
Sure. I think that messaging children drive sometimes. Their parents, they listen to their kids. Yeah. I don't want you to litter. Make sure even my grandson. Make sure you recycle. You got to keep the cans
Yeah,
separate
good.
and stuff. So they learn as
Start
they're
to-
younger, and I think
Yes.
that they could drive the narrative. So I agree.
Anything else? Deb?
No,
That's it?
that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All
Deb.
right.
Thank you very much
Thank
for this.
you.
You're the only one I know who enjoys standing out in the heat
Well,
at Household Hazardous
Tracy
Waste
and
Day.
Mary and I got a red sunburned neck
Oh, yeah.
because I didn't put sunscreen there, but we were so glad it was cloudy that day for most of the day, so most
Thank
of the
you
morning.
for all what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up under old business, COVID updates with town and schools. Jim?
Well, I have a few updates. Well, Queen, as you know, schools are closed, so we have no update, no cases. They're not involved in school right now. There is summer school. They will still be feeding the kids. There's a school lunch program that's still going on.
Okay.
So that is good news. Updates with the COVID with the town. We still have public health nurses that are working at the clinic. We pay I think four work there this week in Southbridge, but the clinic in Southbridge are going to reopen on the 6th. They're changing from Chestnut Street over to South Street facility, and they're also changing their name. I think it's going to be Memorial, UMass Memorial at Harrington. So, but they're keeping our nurses on. We're taking and paying them through FEMA funds, and I just applied for a $100,000 grant to continue on with our shared services for nursing, and we're going to hire a full-time nurse that'll work in Auburn, Brimfield, and Charlton. So I finished the paperwork. I mentioned to you a couple weeks ago. The money is out there. They're giving out grants as high as $300,000. We didn't want to go. I think that's where most boards of health got in trouble, because you can have one public health nurse for 11 towns when you're just handling Maven for communicable diseases and stuff. But when a pandemic hits and you can do contact tracing, that's when things started to fall apart, and the state had to get the CTC involved. Now they want to make sure that boards of health have adequate people to do contact tracing, and that's what this grant would be for. So if we do have a spike or whatever, we're gonna have someone on staff that's going to be able, is already trained through Maven, already on our books, and we'll be doing all the contact tracing and reporting back. So it's a good thing.
Okay. What do we have for active COVID cases in town right now? Do you know?
We don't have any active.
Good.
Not at this time, and I talked to Cheryl today. She sent a bill over for working on the cases that are now not active. So, and that's from. But the numbers, we don't have any. Our numbers are down. We don't have any cases at this time. So,
Well, that says that the vaccine is working.
and
Hopefully, it will continue to work.
and if you look at the vaccination site in Southbridge, Charlton, their volunteers are there all the time. Our nurses were there working hard. So I really want to thank them for the hard work they've done. They're closing the clinic down, so the CERT workers are not going to be there, but Harrington's still going to keep our nurses on and let their nurses go back to work at the hospital because they're going to, be busy.
So the clinic, the vaccination clinic is closing for.
Just for the holiday,
Okay.
but reopened on the 6th. So it's not really closing, but they're open on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Our nurses that we've hired through Charlton will still be working.
Okay. And what are they getting for a vaccination turnout per day on average? Do you
I
know?
haven't got an update with them.
Couple hundred?
We were getting meetings every day, but I'm not sure the exact numbers. They're in transition when they close, but they were getting a few hundred a day. They were getting hundreds a day at one time.
Yeah, at the peak.
I stopped there just a few weeks ago, and it was a steady flow still into the building. So, and they were walk-in only, so there's no appointment needed.
That's even better. Yeah, get
So.
there early on your way to work or something.
But our nurses that are working there, they love them. They do a great job. They're very passionate in what they do, and they enjoy it. So, I'm glad that people don't realize how many nurses. I think Pete knows in Charlton. We had 78 response to 80 responses that we gave to Harrington. Say, hey, Charlton has this many nurses that are willing to step forward. That's a lot.
Yeah.
You realize that there's that many around that they stepped up. So some of them were retired that wanted to work and stuff, but certainly we were willing to.
That's good. Good news. We like that.
Yeah. So hopefully I'll give you more update on the grant. We still have $17,000 left, and we applied for $100,000 for additional funding. That will bring this person on full time to work. You have to have a minimum of 3 towns to apply for the grant, and if we brought in 5 or 6 towns, the person wouldn't be able to do the job. They'd be overwhelmed. It's too much. So
This is probably preliminary, but are you hearing anything about potential booster shot coming up in fall, winter?
they talked today about the different. It's the Delta variant that is out there, and the World Health Organization has asked people to put masks back on. The CDC has not asked, nor has local boards or the Department of Public Health recommended that you wear a mask. If you're not vaccinated and you're out or you're going into really they want you to, it's a recommendation, but it's not something that Dr. Katie Brown spoke today at the DPH meeting at 3. Is that she's not recommending that. If it's a good thing to wear a mask, but she didn't recommend that we have to follow the WHO's recommendation,
Okay.
which is a good thing. I just felt that she felt that this Delta variant that's out is way more contagious. If it gets to the point, we need to be ready, and she'll let us know.
One last question, Jim. What is the fully vaccinated rate of adults in Massachusetts now? I know it's over 50%. Is that correct?
It's I think over 4 million people right now in Massachusetts have been vaccinated. We have the website. I don't have the exact
No, that's
numbers, so
okay.
I
I
don't
was
want to
just
speculate. But it's certainly. They talked about today more about communicable diseases. They talked about environmental epidemiologists. They talked about towns working on lead, heart attacks, the numbers in that. It's all going to be posted now. So they're working to making sure the communities are healthy also. So we'll have that website. We're going to post that attachment so you can check. That they're looking at areas of lead poisoning. They're looking at areas of heart attacks. Charlton's very low, thankfully. They're in the low end of having heart attacks, and they're monitoring all that. So we certainly new information today came out. What don't know if you got on the meeting today, Pete, but it was,
I was jam-packed today.
but it was a lot of information, but we do have the link, and I'm gonna share it with the board so they can take a look at it. It's good numbers, so it's a lot of work they've done, so. Dr. Wang is took over for Ron O'Connor, and is the new director, so.
All right, nothing else on COVID vaccines?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, all right. We'll come back to you later. Next on the agenda, new business, number 5, Old Worcester Road, parcel 35-D-27. Jim, you've got the background on this. Pete, I don't know how, or Matt, you're kind of quiet there, which is fine. I don't know how much you guys are aware of this. There's some info, some old correspondence and things that are associated with this. And also in the audience today, I don't know if you, Diane, if you want to come forward or, okay, might be easier just so the camera's not swiveling back and forth.
Matt, can you still hear us?
Loud and clear.
Okay, good. It's
Okay.
just very quiet, so that's good. Jim, do you want to get started on this? Because
I did receive a call from attorney Michael Colagnesi, and he's the one that presented this information to me, that Russ Turner in September 21st of 1995 to Mr. Armand Carpentier. Dear Mr. Carpentier, property according to the assessor's records located at Old Worcester Road, parcel 350-27 is owned by Charlton Center Realty, Inc. The burial of asphalt on this property is in violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 111, Section 158, private and public dumping grounds, assignment of place, appeal, and public hearing, maintenance and operation and enforcement. You are hereby ordered to stop all work at this property immediately. There can be no further acceptance or removal of any material at the site without written approval of the Board of Health. In addition, you are ordered to contact this office upon receipt of this order to schedule a meeting with the board. Now, that was 1995, September. There are the documents here, which from the Conservation Commission went to Mr. Carpentier also in 1996. Was an agreement to accept fill at the old site of Old Worcester Road. This agreement was a contractor was putting in the sewer lines for the town. There was to be no money exchanged. However, the contractor Albany's Inc., who happens to be the one putting in the water line right now, would be allowed to store materials and contractors on site. The job would be completed in the late spring. In November '96, we were approached to file a notice of intent, which we did. Then in December 20th, received a request of DEP to pre and post drainage calculations. Albany's engineers could not provide this information, neither could Marin Environmental. And engineers from SEA were then hired to do these calculations for $2,000. Last month, they returned our plans, and they could not perform because they could not do the elevations. They could hire this done for another $3,000 to $4,000. Now in the process of interviewing surveyors. We're asking that your indulgence while this is being resolved. We have every intention of complying with DEP's request and submit the complete forms. Thank you. Mr. Armand Carpentier, President of Charlton Center Realty. So I think Diane may, there was also another letter here from Mr. Gauthier, who was chairman of the board at the time, I believe.
Yes, there's a few letters.
No, he was a household hazardous waste technician for the fire department. That's who it is. And he wrote a letter too on 9/29 of '95. He used to run out of the fire department and do the hazardous waste response.
Okay.
He's no longer with us. Neither is Mr. Turner. But that came out. That letter is hard to read. It's not written that well. But there was also a letter signed that I have. I don't have a copy of it here by the chairman that he knew that it was on site and something would have to be done, and that was Dave Lawrence. It's hard to read. I don't know if you have that copy there.
There's probably a better copy there.
Yep. So this was Mr. Armand Carpentier. On September 21st, 1995, a stop work order was issued for a property located at Old Worcester Road, parcel 350-27. The Board of Health is satisfied that their remedial action has been complete as directed. The Board therefore rescinds the stop work order, and you may resume lawful use of your property. Dave Lawrence. So this is not something we had, so thank you.
You're welcome.
So what happened was they were, yeah, go ahead, Matt. Are you up to speed on all this going back that far? Are you talking 25, 26 years ago?
Are you asking me, John?
Yeah, I'm just curious if you've had.
I was not directly involved with that back at that time. I was aware of some issues over there in the past, but I mean, for my 2 cents, for whatever it's worth, you know, back in 1995, it was common practice to do that. You know, it wasn't like they were trying to get away with anything. I'm sure, you know, Albanese was a reputable contractor. I mean, it's at the center of town. I don't think they were trying to hide anything by any means. I just think that they were doing something that DEP was starting to put the hammer down and say, listen, we're no longer going to allow this type of action going on. To me, it seems like Mr. Carpentier stopped all operations immediately. Seems like our hazmat guy, Ed Gauthier, came out, looked at the situation, said that everything, you know, was okay in his opinion as far as the hazmat, and then further it was reinforced by the chairman of the board, Mr. Lawrence, saying that all remediation has been resolved. So considering what has happened in the time that 26 years has gone by, unless there's an open case with DEP that's unresolved, I don't see any reason for our board to, you know, carry this any further than it is. I think it's old news and a done deal. And I think at the time, Mr. Lawrence, when he was on the board, should have perhaps written a letter to the lawyer or to whoever saying that everything was satisfied. Now, I didn't hear that until today at the meeting right now, but as far as I'm concerned, I don't see a problem with it, and I think the Carpentier should be, well, whoever the landowner is, but I think the Carpentier should be able to move forward with their land.
So can I just back up just a little bit? Albanese Construction was taking the asphalt trailings and placing them on Armin's property with the intent of then going back at some point and taking all the asphalt pieces out and then taking it away for proper disposal. Is that the case? Does anybody know?
It would be, in my opinion, total speculation that at the time it was cheap fill. They were filling in a hole or you know, a low lying area over there, and Albanese had that product, which happened to be the asphalt, and they buried it.
So it was put into a hole, because initially I thought, oh, they just had a level area and they mounded up a bunch of this stuff just so they didn't have to have dump trucks on call day in and day out while they were putting in this sewer line.
I think, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think the lot is level.
Yeah, you guys have a lot of holes in the story.
Okay,
Yes,
so
we-
can you want to fill us in?
It starts with the letter back in, the first one was April 7th, 1994. And I'm speaking on behalf of my parents and as their realtor with a failed sale because of this not being completed correctly. My dad was approached to help the town of Charlton, saving thousands and thousands of dollars if he would allow fill and use of his land while the water line was being put in. My dad has a letter to the highway superintendent, William Foley, stating that he will allow clean fill only on the site and storage of equipment, trucks, and that he would provide a safe area for them to do that. And it was clean fill only. Albanese started dumping asphalt on the property during the construction, and then Ed Gauthier was alerted to the fact that there was asphalt. Ed Gauthier told my dad that you need to crush the asphalt and bury it, which my dad did under the instruction of Ed Gauthier. And then Ed Gauthier said you need to do drillings and borings to show the town where the asphalt was buried, which my dad did, costing him thousands of dollars. Then you have one letter where it says they can't satisfy all the requirements of the filing, and that they needed more time to research another company to go complete the requirement, all at the expense of my dad again. And now we have the property for sale. We've got a buyer who is backing out on like a week before closing because Attorney Colagnesi uncovered the fact that the former DEQE was not alerted to the fact that Ed Gauthier and his committee signed off on the project, and it was never recorded with the now current DEP stating that the property is okay as is. So there was a big hole between the Charlton Board of Health accepting the location of the fill that my dad had to pay to identify, and then it getting recorded from the DEQE over to the DEP. So there's an outstanding cloud on the title because the DEP has not signed off on it.
I think the board approved. I think
Through the chair.
Yes, go ahead, Matt.
So I just want to point out that it's my understanding that the burying of asphalt and or concrete for that matter is not illegal, it is not hazardous, but it comes down to the size of the product. And what the idea is they don't want to have large voids in the ground where, you know, we'll have sinkholes down the road. That's why they require that it gets crushed to a certain size, be it a 4-inch minus or a 6-inch minus. So I think that's why when Mr. Gauthier went out on that Saturday morning, and Mr. Carpentier or whoever his operator was crushing it up with the dozer, and I read something about that. I think that's why Mr. Gauthier said that they were satisfied, and it also would explain why our board, Mr. Lawrence, was satisfied.
Yeah, this story gets interesting here. When my dad was approached by Mr. Gauthier suggested he be hired to use his bulldozers. My dad hired Ed Gauthier and his bulldozers to do the work. Ed came down, approved the work, said you're doing it right. Ed signed off for the Board of Health that my dad did the work correctly.
it's kind of a conflict.
Yeah,
Kind
this
of.
is, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately,
And
Ed,
it's all documented.
I think you have good notes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Ed Gauthier doesn't speak for the board, but he's the hazardous waste. He definitely was the chairman of the hazardous waste committee, and did respond in a truck for the town. Worked out of the fire department, I believe. But I think Dave, like Matt said, Mr. Lawrence said it was not an issue with the board. I didn't see that letter, but thank you for giving it. But so I don't think we're gonna. It's up to the board, but I don't think we have any enforcement against it from right now.
And right here, it's right on the hazardous waste committee letterhead that it
Yeah.
says, so it's not from the board.
Gosh, I don't even know what to do with this. I mean, this is, not only does it
Yeah.
predate everybody in this room, but some of the folks here are no longer living.
All three of them are.
So,
Through the chair?
yes, Matt, because I don't know, you know, what to
If-
think of it. Anyways.
If we had a different scenario going on where we had sinkholes and water puddling and some type of hazard going on with that property, I think the board may want to take a better look at that. But whereas this has been 26 years in the past with no issues, it's a flat parking lot. Obviously, if this new buyer is going to be involved in it, they know there's something going on, so it won't even be a surprise to them, which still really has nothing to do with our board. But I feel as though it's a non-issue for us at this time. I just don't see there being a hazard. I don't think there was a hazard, except for maybe the size of the asphalt was a little, was too big. It sounds like they crushed that up to satisfactory, and I don't see this being a problem. And myself, I wouldn't hold up, I would sign a letter releasing, you know, from the board, as Mr. Lawrence had stated in his letter back in 1995.
Even if we did that, Matt, would that satisfy DEP? Do you know? I mean, I'm just throwing this out there.
Well, what I would recommend is, we draft a simple letter saying the Board of Health has reviewed such and such, you know, map, block, and parcel number of the town of Charlton and has no issue with, this at this time or whatnot. Then it comes out of our hand. If the DEP has an issue with it, then that's the DEP. But as far as the town goes, a simple letter would probably satisfy what the Carpenters are trying to do at this point.
I don't even know what to say. I'm just, there's too much here that I don't know, too much that's legal that I don't know. And I don't know what the DEP is actually stating as far as for the new buyer. Obviously, there's something that's out there that's still an issue. So.
Unsigned off,
Not signed off by the DEP.
yes.
Okay.
And the other thing is they told my parents to get it signed off, you have to hire a DEP agent at thousands of dollars to go into the closed DEP office to research all the way back to the DEQE to find out what they need to get to provide the information to sign off on now. So we have a buyer who's trying to withdraw. We have to return the deposit. It's a market I've never seen before. It's gonna take months to get this signed off. And then we'll be looking at reselling the property in the fall, if that's when we can get it resolved.
Yeah. And you think that's what it's going to take the scenario that you just laid out?
Somebody
that's what
from
it
the
is.
DEP now has to be hired to go back and research it. And like you said, I mean, this goes back to 1994, 95, 96.
Yeah, it's. I think, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think the letter from the chairman at the time stated there was no issue with the board. As far as the DEP, I'm not sure why the DEP would have an issue if it wasn't reported to them. I think any transfer of sale, I don't think this commercial property needs a 21E.
Village zone, 21E has not been mentioned.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing it up. But,
Commercial property requires a 21E.
yeah, so it's village zoned. I think the problem is that with Ed Gauthier getting hired with his equipment to do the work, that he signed off on it. We've got the Board of Health stamped signatures that they accept what Ed Gauthier said that the property's allowed. Ed Gauthier should have turned it over to the DEQE to get them signed off on, and that never happened. So now it's coming to light when we're trying to transfer the property that it wasn't reported and signed off to the appropriate government agencies.
It's a tough situation, I understand. I think that if you have copies of that, I think we should forward them to the DEP to show that there was an error on Mr. Gauthier, who's no longer with us. Neither is Mr. Turner, and neither is Mr. Lawrence, who this was all involved with. They're no longer with us. So I think that if we can satisfy the DEP and get them the letters that we have and give them the copy that you have, I can assist you and get that to the DEP, to the proper people, because they're still working from home. So
Yes.
maybe they.
That's the thing, they had to be hired to go in to the
You're right.
COVID closed
They can't even
office.
go into their offices, and this is Mary Jude Pigsley told me that she can only drive into the parking lot and they walk out their paperwork, so I can understand, but I don't think this board did anything, or I think it's people in the past.
So, I mean, what we can state is we reviewed the evidence here.
Yeah.
We don't have any active concerns, and it looks like the issue is resolved back in the 90s.
Yeah, and I could send that letter into Mark Baldy or Mary Jude as director and state, could you please clear this up, that and give them the letter that Mr. Gauthier didn't always follow the rules. That's why they have, the state has their own hazmat team now, so they don't allow people like this to do it. Qualified people come in, and that's when mistakes are made, that it was the DEQE at the time, now it's the DEP. But I don't think you should. We'll try and get a letter, if the board would permit, to reiterate that this was signed off on years ago by the town and by the board, and then we don't have any current issues with the property.
That's key too, just to say that there's no issues. We are unaware of any issues since that time.
I think the problem is my parents went on the word of Mr. Gauthier as a town authority that they needed to spend the additional money to do the research to locate the depth and the location of the asphalt, that he needed to crush it, hiring Mr. Gauthier, who then signed off on it, not reporting it. That's the issue, that when we spoke earlier, Mr. Philbrook, you told me he did not have the authority to direct my dad to do that work. So,
Mr. Gauthier, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Gauthier at the time was the Hazardous Waste Committee. I think he also responded, because we'd be on a hazmat and he would respond in his hazmat truck. So he was the authority through the fire chief, through the town at the time. So he was the hazardous material response unit, which he ran. Unfortunately, he signed up. He's not with us. So, but what this board is saying, that they can get you the letter to satisfy the DEP, and maybe they'll accept that, and that would help you. But other than that, this board had nothing really to do with it, and the people the parties that did have all signed off on it. They just didn't go the next step to get it to the DEP.
That's right.
To let them know. So we'll try and facilitate that for you.
Yeah, and we can obviously also be available if the DEP has additional questions, concerns, they need additional records or whatever, if we've got anything else.
I think Diane has more than I do.
Yeah, it looks like it.
The files is so old that we don't have anything, and because there's no house on the property and stuff, so we don't have a septic, we don't have a file. So other than this paperwork that was produced, so any paperwork you want
Yes,
to give to me, maybe tomorrow you can come
I'll
by,
come
can make
back
some
with
copies. I'll make sure we get a letter out to the DEP. I'll personally call Mary Jude and tell them I'm sending a letter about a property at this location. The board currently has no issues with it. We met last night to discuss it with the property owner. Could you please accept this as clearance for the property? So, but that's all the best we can do. The DEP nowadays is, I don't know, like Matt said, they do allow crushed material for fill in the past, so it was allowed at the time. So they just want big, large voids in large amounts where you can have cave-ins and washouts where, they could cause issues down the line and hazards. So.
yeah. So my mother's concern is that they did this to help the town. They were told it's gonna save the town and the taxpayers thousands and thousands of dollars. And now they footed the bill to do what they were told. And we, Mr. Chair, have a few requests that we would like to specifically ask for the town to provide, and basically assuming responsibility and the expense of the removal, providing us with the DEP letter. Thank you for your assistance to obtain that. And a timeline for the proper removal and replacement of the fill that's there. Right now, the letter said that no structure can be built on top of the asphalt. So with my father accepting it as fill to help the town, it's now hurting the property value.
Mr. Chairman, I think we're going to have to give this to our legal counsel.
Yeah, there's, and I'm not gonna read all through this. Is this our copy, Diane?
That's for you,
Okay.
yes.
So there is a copy with 6 different specific items that Diane is requesting. So yes, this is absolutely something that we have to forward off to
Town administrator.
town administrator and then town council, I would assume. You can make copies for,
Do you want to make?
That's for you, and I'll come back tomorrow with Andrea, and I'll give her the rest of the copies that I have.
Okay.
Matt, are you, if we scan some of this stuff, and specifically this one-page paper, if Jim scans this and sends it to you, do you have the capability to read this where you are now?
Absolutely.
I mean, not this minute, but tomorrow or whenever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Jim, can you have?
Yeah, I'll get it to you, Matt. I'll even if I have to take a picture, you can read it. It's pretty The font's pretty big.
And you know what, copy Pete and me too
Sure.
also, so that.
Just scan it and send it, email
Yeah,
it.
scan and send it, so that we've got
So,
it.
John, if I could just say 2 more cents worth.
Of course, that's what we're here for.
So it's a similar situation to where if somebody were to bury stumps, and then down the road the builder wants to put in a project, a house, a pool, whatever the case may be. So in the building code, there's codes that say you cannot build on rubble. So in this scenario here, this asphalt is going to be considered rubble, and it would have to be removed down to virgin ground to be able to get a stable, compacted foundation footing and whatnot. But again, that is a problem for the Carpentiers without doubt, or the new landowner. But it's not a Board of Health issue. And as far as our role in this, I don't see a problem as far as that being there. No, you cannot directly build above it. If it was a side yard or something, it's not going to be a big deal. But whereas it may go right where a foundation is, they're going to have another obstacle to get through as the landowners. But I don't believe it's going to be a Board of Health issue.
Thank you, Matt. Jim, anything to add?
I just think, based on the letter she gave us, that we need to give it to the town administrator and proceed from there.
Okay. And-
Because the Board of Health didn't have authority over the household hazardous waste technician who did this. It was the town, it was the fire chief, it was not the Board of Health. So he gave guidance, but he didn't give it through the board.
All right. And you'll be contacting Mary Jude or Mark Baldy about that?
Well, I think based on this letter, we have to hold
Yeah.
off.
Okay.
Yeah, I
all
think
right.
we have to go to the town administrator
Okay.
first and seek
Yep.
guidance.
All right. All right. Anything else, Diane?
No, I'd just like to get this resolved, and I know we're gonna have to cooperate
Right.
to get it done, and with the DEP now.
Hopefully they're able to put somebody on this right away.
Yes.
I don't know what their timeline is, but
So if it wasn't a Board of Health, why would the Board of Health agent signed off on that Ed was satisfied with the location of the asphalt and the work that was done?
yeah, I don't know.
I can't speak for someone who's not here to speak for themselves, but
Yeah.
Ed doesn't work for the Board of Health. It doesn't answer to the board. Russ Turner ordered the stop order. The chairman, his boss, released that and said it was okay. So, but as far as him, the household hazardous waste person, that's a conflict of interest to order a job
And then
yourself
to say-
and then do the work yourself.
And then to sign off
So
and
that-
say, yeah,
Yeah.
my work was good.
We all sign a conflict of interest when we report on board, so, but I can't speak for these people. I don't know it, I've never met any, I met Dave Lawrence, but this is, like Matt said, I don't believe this is a Board of Health issue at this time, but at least it's a Town of Charlton issue, and we're gonna give this to the town administrator.
So this is where it says the Charlton Board of Health accepts this as a representative location of the asphalt. And
Yeah, I
it's
read
got
that.
Yeah, so I think I sent you this part.
Yeah, that part is the part that I was missing.
Yes, with
But-
two Board
Yeah,
of
but
Health.
you're talking in a situation of you paid someone, meaning Mr. Gothier, who does not work for the Board of Health, does not answer to the Board of Health, some money. He did it on his own, under his own accord, not through the Board of Health at the time. And then, you're talking 1994, these people aren't even here, so this becomes a
I'm
legal issue.
personal friends with this person, so I almost asked her to come tonight.
Yeah, but this becomes a legal issue, and that's, you're talking Miss Degnan. But this was, the enforcement letter was from Mr. Gothier. This stop order was from the health agent at the time, and he was overruled by his boss, who is the Board of Health chairman, to say they had no issue. So this becomes, and with your letter that's presented, I think that we should give this to Andrew and let
I
him
understand.
figure it out.
Yeah, okay.
Because you made some requests that really is not, this board does not have any control over.
Well, I think it's gonna take assistance,
Sure.
and we'll need to find old copies of things, but like I said, you guys have a lot of holes, so I'll bring these letters to Andrea tomorrow and get them into your files.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, and we'll try to work to get the land sale through for you, or
It's-
whatever way
it's-
that we can.
He's withdrawing, so we've lost it.
Can I make a comment as a public?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
So just from a high level, from what I see,
Mhm.
so these folks volunteered to help the town by allowing this storage. Then the contractor put the wrong material on there, and then the town, in general, well, not specifically this room, but the town told them to bury it, and they did at their expense. So they've already incurred money trying to help the town. And now they can't even sell the property because of what they did to help the town and the town told them to do. That's kind of what I see it as.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that accurate at a high
That's-
level?
That's a nice summary.
I mean, I think it comes down to we don't have the span of control over the resolution of this, so it has to go to the administrator for next steps.
Yep.
But you have no active objection or any issue that you can see?
I'm not saying that there's no objection. I said there's two sides to each story. So I mean, we're definitely hearing your side. I'm not familiar with the case and the particulars at the time, the agreements that were made. I have no reason to discount that. It was truly an act to help the town. But at this point, it's not within the scope of this board to other than bring it to the town administrator for guidance.
Yeah, we have no control of what you want. We don't. You mentioning the town, but that's not the board. The board didn't authorize Mr. Gothia to demand, or the board didn't allow you to dump there. The board actually told you to stop dumping there on the letter from Mr. Turner.
So it looks like the highway department's involved, because that's who the initial letter was. when
That's
my
why it
dad-
needs to go to someone else, because it's not just the board that's involved here. There are other entities that we have no control of it needs to go to the town administrator.
So earlier you said that the state came in with a new committee to avoid the mistakes like Mr. Gothier made. They came in with a statewide hazardous.
We have Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
they have a state hazmat team in Massachusetts. Boston has their own hazmat team. If there's a hazmat and the fire department deems it, then you call the hazmat team, they come in, and they call the DEP emergency response, which is Kevin Dowse. They don't have, they used to allow those things. I don't know when that stopped or whatever. I'm not privy to that information. But the state has a hazardous response team. This would not be a hazardous response. This is an issue of soil that was brought in with some crushed asphalt. This is not an issue, I believe, that is going to cause that there's some hazardous thing that
Okay.
needs to be. So
So it's non-hazardous, and it's just a matter of resolving the DEP.
I don't think we know if it is.
I don't know.
We don't know.
I don't know
what's
what's
in it.
there.
We have test borings that they paid for, and it's asphalt mixed with clay and sand.
Yeah.
yeah, but again, we'll have to, based on that, if you can bring that information in, it'd be great. I think that would help the DEP to, if anything, to say yes. We think that the property may have some crushed asphalt, but it was and I don't know at the time what was allowed, so I can't. It's just hearsay. I wasn't around at the time. I didn't work here, and I don't know any of the parties
Yeah,
other than Mr. Lawrence, who was briefly on the board. But I don't know. And we can't ask any of them because they're
Well,
not.
I have letters with the report that it was submitted to Conservation and Hazardous Waste Committee, so I'll bring those in tomorrow.
Yeah, bring anything you want to bring in, we'll make copies and put a
Okay.
file together so we have it. And we'll provide the information to the town administrator so he can make an informed decision on what you requested also.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming
Thank
in.
you. You're welcome. Thank
It's
you.
a tough case.
Yes.
I wish you luck with getting resolution, and hopefully the sale goes through at some point in the near future.
Thank you.
Pete, good to see you. Next, under new business, we have PFAS testing available to Charlton residents with wells. Jim, I know that the DEP was looking for a certain number of wells to be tested throughout the town of Charlton, just so they could get some sort of a
Yep.
baseline for the PFAS that's in some drinking water. What do we have for that?
we put this on our website, and we're trying to get the word out that if you call, it's up to you as a private homeowner. If you want it tested for PFAS, you can, but it's up to the private. It's an agreement between what the state would be offering, and you'd have to call yourself and make the arrangements because it's private property.
Okay, so we don't know how many people have signed up.
No,
Okay.
no, that would come out, like, say if you decide to call yourself and to come out and test, and they did find that that would be between you and the state that they
Okay.
did the testing.
So the board would not be notified of this, or no?
I think they're trying to get a number,
Okay.
because they think that some of this may have been caused from AFFF foam from firefighting, it's fish oil, and from aerial spraying, whatever, I'm not sure, but I'm not saying there's a problem in Charlton. I know Dudley had some issues with their water supply with it, but I think they're just being proactive in getting some testing out and offering directly to Charlton.
That's good.
we
So
get
it
the
is
word out.
still available.
It
And if
is.
anybody who's listening wants to get on our website, and there's probably a link that'll take you right there,
Yeah.
I would assume.
Again, we can.
Free
this meeting,
testing.
It's free testing.
Yeah.
But it's for PFAS.
Yep. Okay. All right, I think we can take that off probably next time.
Yep.
It'll still be on the website. The testing is probably available until DEP says we've got enough volunteers.
Yes.
Moving on, department head reports. That's you, Jim.
Again, I spoke a little bit about this. I did meet with the DEP a couple weeks ago with Gary. We did walk through our old 54 Flint Road landfill with Greg Root and his assistant, just to take a look at. They're going to be drafting a letter, a CAD, back to the town to see what our plan is for the future for capping our old landfill. So that's something that the town is aware of. We've made them aware of a few years ago. We've tried to get capital money, at least a couple $1 million. But I think that I did speak to Andrew about it. He couldn't walk through with us, but Gary was with us. And generally, it's just an overview. They go to all the landfills, and at some point in time, the DEP is going to send a letter to the town of Charlton Board of Health and to the town administrator and selectmen of what is your move forward as far as capping. Are you going to accept materials? What is your plan for the capping? In other words, are you going to make a parking lot out of it? Are you going to accept materials, COM 97, and make some money and fill? But it's relatively flat, so I don't think that's good. But that'd be something that the town administrator and the selectmen would have to take a look at, whether they want to open that up and like we did before. But there is going to be a request to cap the old landfill.
Is there a time frame, deadline, or anything, or is it pretty much open-ended?
It's open-ended. We haven't received the request yet. They haven't issued an order. We're compliance, because Gary did fix all the things that we did do the walkthrough. The wellheads are all capped and tested. Gary does go through. They were all cleared by Gary, so we could have clear access to walk through. There's a lot of old growth in there still, so that landfill's been inactive for quite a long time. So it's not like it's accepting any materials. They did the borings in the road. Remember, they thought they made, and there was no trash found or anything. So
Well, you didn't think so, so.
no, I didn't think so. But
That's good.
again, you never know until. But other than that, we did apply for the shared services grant for nursing for contract tracing. So hopefully we finished that. Andrea helped out. She was a big part of it. We sent it off to CMRPC, Connor Robichard, and hopefully we'll get news on the award of the grants, and we'll be able to keep a nurse other than Cheryl on. Cheryl's still going to be doing Maven. This nurse will be doing for contract tracing, and they want us to keep someone on, and they're going to pay for it. So
As long as there's a need, right?
yeah, we'll be shared with Auburn and Brookfield,
Right.
and they're going to supply. They're giving us the money for the computer, the phone for the person, benefits if they needed. They would pay fully for it. It's someone we have already on the staff that we're thinking about staying on. Her husband is a firefighter in town. She grew up on Ramshorn Road, so she's currently. She's already trained in Maven. I got her trained. She's got Trophy. I got her signed in, got her access, so she's monitoring and being trained. So she's our public health nurse could not do contract tracing for the amount of towns that she did.
No
So
way.
the CTC is going to close. This would be for October. It would be something that she would be on and be able to work. and do the work for contact tracing, so. I'll keep you updated. We haven't received, Thursday was the deadline, we got it in today, so we're gonna make a few changes, and it'll be all set to go.
Anything else?
I'm sure I forgot about 15 things, but my head's full right now, but.
It's been a rather long meeting. Any other business that, Pete or Matt, any business that we should be made aware of?
Jim, did you see the picture that I sent you?
No.
It's on your phone.
Okay. All right, I'll check it.
Is that something you want to bring up now as an official agenda item, or put it on the
Yeah,
agenda?
just if you wanted to show it to the board, that would be fine.
Okay. When I hang up from you, I'll show the board with your permission.
Oh, yeah. You have to hang up. You can't just do it.
Like I said, I'm new to this phone, and are you still there?
I'm here.
Hopefully he won't lose you, because I'm going to be no help with this.
Well, you got a rainbow,
A double.
a double.
A double rainbow, and there it is.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
So as we're having this Board of Health meeting, I just got hit with a pretty good storm and
So did we.
followed up with a double rainbow. So
That's awesome.
welcome to Illinois.
Well, be safe out there.
I have nothing to bring up. I wish the Carpenters the best of luck with that their case over there. I think they're getting a bum steer over there, and it's too bad for them. You know, I guess you call it a skeleton in the closet. All homeowners, well, not all homeowners, but many homeowners have that when they don't, cross the T's, dot the I's, and all that. And it's too bad because it's time sensitive with having a buyer right now. Besides that, I definitely give my thanks to Deb for what she's doing in the household hazardous waste. Sometimes she's putting in with that. I think putting the signs up are a great idea. You know, the warning, $250 fine. It may help, it may not, but I don't think it can hurt. I think that's a great idea. And besides that, I've got no comment. No, I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you on the signs for $15 and have the highway provide the stakes and put them up at select roads around town that tend to have the litter issue. I think that's money well spent, just so people aren't out there either paid or volunteering. There's nothing worse than seeing volunteers out there with bags and bags of trash, and these folks have to go through weeds with ticks and God knows what else to pick up nip bottles and styrofoam cups. I find it appalling. Anything else? No, Pete? No? Okay, Jim, we're all set?
I'm all set.
Next, determine next meeting. I'm thinking 3 weeks, 4 weeks. What do you guys want to do? 3 weeks
Whatever
works.
works.
3 weeks works for me. Jim, is that okay?
Yeah, I'm on vacation next week for the 4th. I took 3 days off because Monday's a holiday. So, but
Okay.
after that, I come anytime you guys have a meeting. I'm here.
You're bringing up the
Looking at
calendar.
Yeah.
July 20th?
July 20th, next meeting at 6 in the office.
Sounds good. July 20th. 6 p.m. All right. I think we're all set. Matt, hopefully we'll see you in person. If not, this works as well. Thank you for joining us tonight.
I appreciate your patience with my attendance. I'm hoping to be back. I'm coming home Friday, and I'm not planning on coming out subject to change. So,
Okay, good. Well, maybe you'll be here for the next meeting. in
Safe
person.
travels.
thank you.
All right, so we're ready to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, meeting is called at, what do you have, Jim, 7:25?
7:24.
7:24. Thank you very
Bye,
much,
Matt.
everyone.
Take care, everyone.
All right,